Discover, engage, elevate. Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me Joel Huffman, who is a language learning entrepreneur. Welcome to the studio, Mr.
Thank you, Joshua. Pleasure to be here. Huge fan of the show. Awesome to see it in person.
Thank you so much, Joel. It means a lot coming from you. Joel, let's start from the very beginning. What brought you to Saudi Arabia? What is your background in?
It's not language, so it was a curveball. I'm from Texas originally. I'm from a town called College Station, Texas. I was born
That's a great state.
It's a great state. A lot of similarities, actually. Texas has the ranch life, the kind of cowboy life like that, very in touch with nature as well. And Saudi is the same way. Even if in the city, it's awesome to get out to the desert and have a keshta or something, getting away and enjoying nature. So yeah, Texas originally. I moved to Saudi in 2017. So I've been here about 6 years. And I originally came in the fitness industry, sports, fitness, wellness. At that time, it was a massive increase. And so I just got this opportunity to come over, help launch a fitness company, and just fell in love with the culture, fell in love with the people. I actually had some Saudi friends in Texas. This was my first experience with Saudi hospitality, was in Texas. And every gathering we'd go to, my Saudi friends would bring dates and coffee. And so it was unique. Everybody's first reaction to coffee, oh, this is coffee? This doesn't taste like coffee. It tastes more like tea. And anyway, every time. But it was great. They were very good friends. They came to Thanksgiving, actually, with my family. So we had turkey and gravy and mashed potatoes. And then we had jarish and other things as well. So
jarish is like the Saudi version of stuffing. Or stuffing is the American version of jarish, I would say. It's like a comfort food.
Yeah,
it's a very big comfort, fatty, salty kind of comfort food.
Yes, keeps you warm too. Mm-hmm. November's sometimes cold. So I think I already knew, the Saudi people, the Saudi culture, very respectful, very hospitable. I didn't imagine there was an entire, I thought I found two of the best Saudis in the whole world that were my friends and stuff. And then I moved to Saudi and the whole country is like this. So at that time, this was around 2019, 2020. And so a lot of the changes for Vision 2030, the social, the economic changes, the transformation plans were going into effect. So yeah, just over the course of time, I always wanted to learn Arabic. So I wanted to learn Arabic. I tried everything. I tried the apps, I tried tutors, I tried online courses or something like Rosetta Stones and the Duolingos and stuff. And it was very difficult because, and we'll get into this later, I'm sure, but Arabic is such a complex and big language that depending on the dialect you learn, or depending if it was like Fusha, like the MSA, Modern Standard Arabic, or the local Saudi dialect. But what I really wanted to do is learn the local dialect where people were, you talk with your neighbors or your colleagues or something like that, really the conversational style of Arabic. And so living here for 3 years, I would try to write down a bunch of notes on my phone and try to memorize sayings and stuff like that. But there was nowhere that I could go to take Arabic sessions in the local dialects. I think just over the course of time, the 3 years that we were here, we saw a need for this. We saw with the launch of Vision 2030, a lot more foreigners were coming here to Saudi, whether it was just visiting or tourists, or certainly for more like long-term, on like business contracts and everything.
So you're telling me, Joel, before this, there was no place that people could go, like an institution that people could go to learn Saudi Arabic?
I think there were online, if you went to a tutor website or something, you could find a tutor that specialized in like Saudi Arabic, but there was no company offering it. Because the issue with tutors, which when we tried them, if you're using a tutor, let's say 2 weeks or a month or 3 months, and then all of a sudden that tutor gets busy and then stops, then you have to restart all over with someone new. Maybe they don't know you. Maybe it's one dialect is Najd, one dialect is Hijaz. So anyways, there was no like consistency, and it takes a long time to learn a language.
So there was no method?
There was no place that you could go. And there's a lot of places for Fusha. There was a lot of places for the formal dialect, reading, writing, things like that. But nowhere for the local dialect, yeah.
So I guess that leads us right into our next question. After this short break, we'll ask Joel about his personal journey into the world of linguistics and what sparked his passion for this captivating field, right here on Artifact.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
So Joel, let me ask you, what got you into linguistics?
Well, I don't have any degrees in applied linguistics. I don't have any scholarly linguist. It's an interesting hobby to me. Actually, a lot of things that I've learned are just out of sheer interest and curiosity and things like that. And also learned a lot from the entire linguistic community, but especially the applied linguistics and the methodologies behind that, the approaches behind that. So yeah, I think honestly, I've always enjoyed learning languages. So I've always been curious. In Texas, I grew up speaking Spanish or learning Spanish, having Latin friends. And then in my first attempt at college, I was studying Mandarin. And so I think I've always really enjoyed it. But I really think it's, language is, we would say it's the foundation, the gateway of culture. So you're talking about entire cultures, entire civilizations, entire attitudes and mindsets, and it tells you so much about an entire society. So I think that's what's fascinating to me. There's history attached to it, maybe religion attached to it, maybe society attached to it. And then so all of that, cultural and history and society combined with a person's individual experience with languages as well. So I think the pen is mightier than the sword. Language is power, and its depth and richness as well.
Another quote I read recently was, the more languages you speak, the more worlds you belong to.
Yes.
And so I think that kind of summarizes your journey to Saudi Arabia and getting into linguistics, is that you were in the universe of athleticism and fitness, and then you were very interested in this world and you wanted to become a part of it, and you wanted to actually bring people into this world that were sharing your world solely before, and now you want to make them your partners, so to speak, in the new world that you're also discovering.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think you're absolutely right in that language. And there's other quotes about language is the window to the soul. It's at the same time, it can connect you very closely with other people. But then coming here as a foreigner, never studied Arabic at all, it was a barrier. Maybe it was talking to a food delivery driver or ordering food at a restaurant. It's humbling. It gives you great appreciation for anybody who's learned a different language, because you realize how important it is and also how difficult it is.
And I guess to kind of recap who you are and how you got here, you said you started off in the fitness business and then you wiggled your way into this world of language learning, but then that opened up a whole nother world, which was the Saudi galaxy of culture and history. And what do you think made Arabic, after you've learned that there's a huge opportunity in world connecting, you remained in Saudi Arabia. You said, I'm going to do this here in Saudi Arabia. And I'm sure the Arabic language had a huge role in that decision.
Absolutely.
So what do you think makes the Arabic language so magnetic, so attractive to people who are trying to learn Arabic?
How much time do we have? do we have 6 hours?
This is a podcast, so you have plenty of time.
Oh man, there have been dissertations written about Arabic over the course of history. So just to go back briefly, again, my background is not in languages. So when we started the company, the two co-founders, one was from education, applied linguistics, and another from a technology background. A lot of the things, but even our co-founder from a technology background, he's proficient in 7 languages. So had the language learning and background as well. So I'm the least experienced in languages.
But that's humble about you not being, an expert in languages or linguistics or the Arabic language. And from what I know, Joel, you're not really fluent in Arabic either, but your contribution is meaningful enough to where now you are helping so many people learn Saudi Arabic specifically. That must be partially because of the magic in the Arabic language. So what is making Arabic magical in the eyes of your students?
I'm very thankful, because one thing that's been a massive blessing in this journey is having people who deep background in tech and education and linguistics. We have our areas of operations and they overlap. But we all see things from a different perspective, which sometimes results in some very strong opinions in different ways, but then also is a huge blessing, because as the company grows or develops and things like that, you realize that one person can have their own sort of sole proprietorship as a freelancer or as a one-man shop or operation or something, or a food truck or something like that. But at that time, the thousands and thousands of people who were coming to Saudi and facing that sort of growth, I'm very thankful for other people who were doing the work. And so I think Arabic is a unique language. This isn't true about all languages. As a foreigner, if I Google, I want to learn Arabic, 70, 80% of all of the resources out there will teach MSA, Modern Standard Arabic, because the rationale there is something that all Arabic-speaking countries use, which on its face value is true. There's 25 countries that claim Arabic as their either national language or their like co-national language. But the dialects, and actually there's research now basically saying that these are actually separate languages. If you take someone from Morocco with so much French influence, so much European influence, even some Spanish influence on a spoken basis, they say, something like 80% of vocabulary consists of 4,000 words or something. But out of that amount, and don't quote me, someone fact check me for sure, but something like that. But the words we speak on a daily basis, those are the words that are most different if you go across the Arabic countries. Like the way to say I want, there's 15 different ways to say that throughout the Arabic speaking world. So it's almost like the most common language is the most different across countries. People would say, and this is specifically like speaking and listening as well, the reading and writing I think has retained a lot more of that sort of the formal dialect that would be strong advocates for modern standard Arabic would say, yes, everybody can use it, everybody can understand it. It's an ancient language. It's the beauty and the uniqueness. Also, there are strong religious aspects to it because this is what the Quran was written in, or not exactly MSA, but something more closer to MSA. And so it's complex. That's what makes Arabic so fascinating and so interesting. It's very complex.
When we're back, we're going to dive deeper with Joel to explore the concept of dialect variation across the Arab world. So stay tuned on Artifact.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
You guys are tuned in on Artifact. Now to pick up where we left. So you're telling me, Joel, that modern standard Arabic is the Arabic that is somewhat shared amongst Arabic countries.
Absolutely.
Somewhat understood, maybe practiced in Muslim majority countries or Muslim countries that have very large Muslim minorities. And you're telling me that the colloquial Arabic that's spoken by the general populaces of these countries is not as interchangeable as the modern standard version of the Arabic language might be when it comes to intercultural, intercontinental spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that add to the magic and the mystery of the Arabic language?
Oh yeah. And I think because it's controversial, which makes it more interesting. I mean, for me personally, I love it because there's no right answer, by the way. There's no right answer of this is what you should be doing, this is what, there's
no right answer in what version of Arabic you should learn, is what you're saying.
It's all personal. It all depends on what your goals are. So,
or your interests.
Exactly. So if you want to know about Arabic poetry, if you want to know things like that, then yes, you need to learn the original, like the MSA and things like this. And because it's such a playful language, it's such in a lot of ways, romantic language. It's very like humorous also. Like their prestige was your words, your ability to think, your quick-wittedness and stuff like that, and how you could manipulate words to convey a meaning and elicit an emotion.
I guess what you would say makes Arabic language so mesmerizing. And one of them is the fact that it's very complex.
Yes.
It's very big.
Yes.
And from what I understand from you, it has an extremely large vocabulary that is a dynamic vocabulary. Using the Arabic language method that the Arabs have been using for thousands of years, you could Arabize almost any word.
Sure.
And yeah, you can make it a part of your colloquial vocabulary. Unlike English, by the way, and unlike many other
logical
Indo-European.
It's very logical. Yes. It's formulaic to a certain degree. They're irregular and regular, everything. But the logic, it's formulaic. It is complex, but that also means that you're able to be more specific. So in English, the word cousin, there's one word for cousin. How many words are there for cousin in Arabic?
There's lots. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the paternal side? Do you want to talk about the maternal side?
Yeah, paternal side, the maternal side, even it's very nuanced as well. And so I think there's a level that you can be more specific with the language. And the way you speak also shows a lot about your cultural values as well. So because there's more specific words for something like how important the family is in Arabic. So you can extract societal values, cultural values from language. And that is just an example of one of them, how important the family is, and to be very specific about which cousin it is, which depending on the context or something like that.
In the West, or people who speak Indo-European and Latin-based languages, they have friends and they have family.
Yeah.
But Arabic is way much more colorful. It's way more specific, if you wanted it to be. Of course, to make it easy, when you're speaking colloquial Saudi Arabic, you only have also friends and family. But if you wanted to get specific, there's very deep rooted words to describe almost everything and every aspect of everything. And so I guess that leads us to another thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is that since the expat community and the professional community in Saudi Arabia are fluent in English, if you're working at a place, especially that's internationally geared or has some sort of international relevancy instead of local relevancy. Like, I don't think anybody should expect to walk into like the supermarket and expect everyone to speak English, even though you realize that a lot of people working at the supermarket, they do speak English.
Sure.
Coming up, we'll ask Joel about the surprising ways in which knowing Saudi Arabic enriches an expat's life and offers an authentic window into the culture.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
And we're back. Joel, let me ask you, why should expats learn Saudi Arabic when all the Saudis, Joel, are speaking English?
I think that actually touches on the other side of the diglossia. So one side was, you know, the strong and compelling reasons to learn the formal dialect. The other side would say for the local dialect, or specifically here, the Saudi dialect, is saying that there's not a single person born in the Arabic world who speaks Fusha natively. It comes down to people's goals, right? So if you want to learn poetry, if you want to learn to read government documents, or you want to read policy papers, academics, things like that, if those are your goals, then 100% learn Fusha, MSA, like all that kind of stuff. If that's your goals, if that's the purpose in learning Arabic. And so this would go back to this question, is why would someone learn Saudi Arabic here? Essentially, language comes down to making connections, right? I strongly believe that people are created by God to have human connections, right? I think it's an essential part of life. We need human interaction. We need human connection. And that's why language is the basis and the foundation for human connection and human interaction. And so I would love to have conversations with people who are coming to Saudi just wanting to stay in their own culture and stay in their own sort of comfort zone. I would say that people are missing out on living in Saudi Arabia. People are missing out in being able to interact with people, not just on a daily basis of ordering food, or I'd say there's also an element of hubris or pride or selfishness, because the way that language works is that it's your culture, it's your society, it's your personal identity and things like that. So what's widely regarded as the most efficient and effective approach to learning language is called a languacultural approach. It's a languacultural acquisition. So we recognize that language and culture are inextricably linked. And when you speak a language, you're not only seeing the world through your own eyes, through your own perspective, you are forcing other people to see it through your perspective. So all my Saudi friends in the room are all speaking English for me. I'm forcing them to, and of course, Saudis are so hospitable. Of course, they'll go 99.9%, they'll go 100% of the way to accommodate me as a foreigner in Saudi. This is the hospitality. This is the generosity as well. But to be a good resident of that country, think of all the things that the foreigners now, the expats now, that are receiving from Saudi, right? Great work environment, very hospitable culture. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince just providing opportunities that literally the world has never seen in the history of the world. The opportunities here, the scope here, the vision here. So this is everything that we're receiving. And what are we contributing? How can we also engage with the society, engage with culture, learn Arabic, engage with culture, and enjoy Saudi Arabia? It's a society that's waiting to welcome people, that's waiting to bring people in. But as a foreigner here, I have a responsibility as well. This society is so welcoming, it's so open, it's so friendly. If you know the basics of the language, people will also see it as a sign of respect as well. So what's a way that you respect? You take the time to learn about people, about the culture, about the society, but the learning through the language, learning through interactions. And you can't overstate the benefits of learning Arabic here in Saudi Arabia. You just can't overstate the benefits. One, it's way cooler because not many foreigners do it. So automatically you're already seen as a more interesting person.
More down to earth.
More interesting, more there's a lot of studies that show it, the increases the neuroplasticity of the brain. So it actually makes you more...
we're going to talk about that more.
Okay. I'll wait for that. But so I would say as an expat, learn Arabic. It's better for you. It's better for the society. And what we're seeing now is just one more point. Some people here speak English. Yes, it's the lingua franca of business, But the statistics show in a country of, using round numbers, I think it's in a country of 35 million people, let's say, 25 million are Saudi nationals. Arabic is their native language. Out of the 10 million expats, 5 million come from Arabic speaking background. Egypt, Syria, Jordan, something like that, Africa, Middle East. So you're talking about 5 million people who don't speak Arabic. The vast minority and out of those 5 million, the ones who are actually engaging and interacting in English on a daily basis are maybe 1% of that. If you really look at the numbers and the statistics, the people who can interact in English all the time, you can survive, sure. Can you survive on English? Yes, Google Translate and stuff like that. But it is a vast minority of people, which actually makes Saudi a unique environment, because if you look at the other Gulf countries, you look at Dubai and it's 90% expats. You look at even Qatar and Kuwait, the expat
ratio.
The expat ratio, exactly. Expat to local ratio is much, much higher. It's mostly expats. So yes, in Dubai, you might not need Arabic at all. You can interact in English and be totally fine. But here in Saudi, the more you go outside of the sort of work and the expat circles, if you just go a little bit, you're going to encounter Arabic. For sure, you're going to encounter Arabic. Even if you just want a better life in Saudi, like learn some Arabic, learn some basic Arabic.
You could live a very normal, high quality life in Saudi Arabia without speaking any Arabic. But what you're saying is, if you want to observe kind of like the full blown experience, best you learn Arabic so that you can understand the culture and the nuances of that culture, the quirky aspects of the culture, the ancient parts of that culture. You can understand people's emotions better. Stay tuned on Artifact as we discuss the unique ways that language bridges cultural gaps and fosters genuine connection.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
So Joel, the more Arabic that I learn and the more Arabic that I see the expat community using, the more I see even English-speaking Saudis are more comfortable expressing their untranslatable feelings.
Yes.
And the more we are able to respond to them with our untranslatable feelings and emotions and aspirations, I think when expats come to Saudi Arabia and they're learning Arabic, like yourself, Joel, they are adding to the dynamism of this country. Like, could you imagine the creative solutions that are going to be globally relevant, that are going to arise from people who are expats speaking Saudi Arabic and Saudis speaking Saudi Arabic at times. Sometimes they're speaking English, and these communities are able to be like you, the entrepreneur, the glue and the lubricant on a national scale. If we could imagine a society in which both expats and native Saudis are going to be able to have all of that confidence, and they're going to have all that comfortableness and familiarity with one another to the point where they're able to reach into each other's cultural experiences to create globally relevant solutions for the world's problems.
And there's nothing but positive benefits from that. Let's say you go to a buffet, one of these really elaborate buffets, and all this is in front of you, and it's the opportunity, and you can access it, and it's all available to you. And you take one small piece of lettuce, and you're eating that small piece of lettuce. You can enjoy that piece of lettuce. Man, that's the best lettuce. I love it, so great, blah, blah, blah. But you are missing out on the entire buffet. You know what I mean? That's kind of
because you don't know it.
Because you don't know it,
or you're intimidated by it.
Oh, what's that food? Like, oh, I'm a little bit like fearful of that food. What is that? Maybe it's the most delicious thing you've ever had in your life, right? There's also an element of humility. It takes humility and it takes courage to enter another culture, to enter another world. And some people, depending on personality makeups as well, they're perfectionists. They really want to get it right. Thankfully, I'm not burdened by perfectionism. Yeah, if it's 60% good enough, let's throw it out there. No, thank God our accountant, it doesn't feel the same way.
Very good.
But yes, I would just say there's so much, and it's here and it's available. And exactly what you said, that's where the magic is. It's this meshing of cultures. It's this meshing of language, because even people who are highly fluent, proficient in English and Arabic, my favorite thing is to hear people who are fluid back and forth, because they say some words are better in Arabic, some words are better in English, some thoughts you can convey better in English, some thoughts you can convey better in Arabic. So what we've also seen, a lot of people we work with, again, Saudi Arabia, the things happening here are unprecedented in the history of the world, right? A lot of times the expats, when they come here, they're coming because they are contributing their very valuable skill set. Maybe it's in construction, maybe it's in project management, maybe it's something like that. So they are contributing to the vision of just stuff has to get done, right? These projects need to get done. We have milestones, we have timelines, we have KPIs. And sometimes what we often hear is, I've just been so busy at work, right? And they love it, right? That's why people are coming to Saudi, is because you couldn't do anywhere else in the world, arguably. The plans for Vision 2030 and what's actually happening, the reality of Vision 2030, we can say, is bringing in some of the top talent from around the world because they're able to create on a global scale. Anyway, there's a lot of reasons that people are coming. All the research shows that what a person does when they go to a new place within their first 3 to 6 months, it indicates that. So that's what we would also say. There's no negatives, there's no downside, and it's a way to really engage with the culture and enjoy your life more. And then the last thing about speaking Saudi Arabic in Saudi right now, a lot of people say, yes, the conversation is in English, but anytime it turns into a very serious discussion or the stakes are higher, it switches over into Arabic automatically. Mm-hmm. And so they say, that's why I want to learn, because I'm left behind. The most important part of the conversation, I can't take a part of. Yes. Or it's maybe they came in from a manager standpoint, but because of the huge population of Saudi Arabia, the youth population who are very qualified and they're coming in at these junior level positions, that manager, if they don't speak Arabic, I'd say that's also not impossible again, but it's just a point of conflict, but a point of tension. We can say a point of friction. A point of friction. Yeah, yes. There we go. A point of friction where we're trying to be the lubricant.
When we return to Artifact, we will ask Joel about the evolution of language and its significance. Don't go anywhere.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
And we're back on Artifact. And speaking of tongues and languages, Joel, AlUla is home to Jebel Ikma, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that is actually a magnet for tourists and scholars for many reasons, but especially because of the plethora of languages that have been inscribed and chiseled on the mountain's surface. What exactly makes languages attractive to scholars? You're in the business of teaching people Arabic, and Saudi Arabia is opening up to international tourism. And a lot of these tourists are visiting places like Jebel Ikma. And so what is the magic here about languages? What's making languages such a high opportunity for countries like Saudi Arabia to focus on?
Oh, it's fascinating. And I love AlUla, by the way. Jebel Ikma is one of the... When you go there, it makes sense that if you just look geographically, it makes sense according to the route that people are traveling, why they would stop there. And even if you look at the rock formations, it's in this sort of like shadowy area, right? So maybe on the outside of the rock formation, you wouldn't see as much, but right when you go into the sort of shaded area, you're like, of course, these are travelers. These are people who've been walking for so long. They would see something like this and say, I'm going to go take some rest. I'll sleep there for the night. I just want some respite from the sun or something like that. So I think even just that is fascinating where, again, just, yes, inscriptions there, but the inscriptions you see are absolutely fascinating. Yes, you see the words. Yes, you see the letters, pictures. There's any message that people wanted to communicate. So you can tell there's just a lot of different people there. So I think that's fascinating as well. Just having people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different everything in that one place at one time, but then also throughout the course of history.
Yeah, it was the land bridge of land bridges. Yeah. It still is today. But back then, it was an essential corridor of travel between Asia and Africa, and from Africa to Europe. And it was a caravan route for such a long time. But you're somebody who's in the world of teaching languages, and you're telling me people are coming from all over the world and they're learning Arabic. And what does language have to offer? The languages itself. It doesn't have to necessarily just be Arabic, but it could be Tagalog in the Philippines, or it could be like any other language in the world that's being spoken. What makes languages so enticing to people? What is it about the human condition that makes them so interested by languages? Yeah,
it's a great question. I think one element of it is that it connects us with history. I think on the scholarly side of it, it connects us, through words or through spoken word. Primarily, it's the way that we communicate messages. It's the way. So I think from the scholarly perspective, being able to go to a society, why was the Rosetta Stone so significant? Because it was able to tell you so much about the society, the trades and the business and the vast expanse of the Egyptian empire at that time. Again, I think the power of it is super interesting. So I think I'll give an example here in Saudi. Sometimes the words you speak if you hear someone speak Arabic, you can, to a certain degree, pinpoint what country that person's from, certainly. I think they're from Saudi. Okay, but what area in Saudi? Because Saudi's a massive place. We have everything from Tabuk and Jof and Jizan and Najran and Hijaz and Najd. So you can tell even what region they're from. But even in Arabic, which you could even tell what the area, the exact family that they're from, they could live across the street from each other. And one person, because of maybe it's the historic family or something like that.
Maybe their word choice or tonality.
Yeah. And you could live across the street from someone. One person comes from a family, one person comes from another family. And all of a sudden they say that one word. And it's almost like curiosity. It's, oh, you're living here at the time.
And so when I hear you using these words, and I hear you using this pronunciation, this tonality, if I was proficient in that language, and if I had experience in the country of that language, I could definitely know where you're from and who you might even be related to.
Yeah.
So I guess humans are hardwired to want to do that. I want to know as many details about you as I can as a human being. And so you're another human being. And this thing that we call language is a communication tool. And so when you're communicating, I'm actually observing how you feel, who you are, what do you want?
And how I can connect you with you.
And how I can, should I see you as a threat? Should I see you as a friend? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Do we share genetic material? Because if you're using the same accent that I am,
you're from a different family, but I know your cousin, I know your uncle. Yeah, it is connection. It's a connection point. Exactly what you said. I think people inherently, they want to make those connections. And we talked about language being both a gate and a barrier to a certain degree and why it's so fascinating. You mentioned it like this identity marker, and something that came to mind was if you look at somewhere like AlUla, where you have, they're discovering not just significant to Saudi, these are significant discoveries to humanity,
absolutely.
To all of the human race, to everybody in the world. And we're finding things out about our past and our history that are helping connect the dots. They're helping make connections between, why did these people migrate here during this time?
Why was this language prevalent here and not, for instance, somewhere else? And I think you're right. I think people are, they're able to understand their pasts through languages, and they're able to see their futures perhaps even through languages. And I really think that essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to learn about each other.
Yeah.
For the most part, if you have the drive to learn a language, you really have a drive to learn about people.
Well, and you have to have that motivation because of how difficult it is to learn a language. You have to have some sort of intrinsic motivation that that drives you when it's hard, when you're tired, because it's the top reasons that people learn language is, and in no particular order, I don't know exactly, I think it depends on the language and stuff, but sometimes it's for work, sometimes it's for a family member. Let's say I'm marrying someone else from a different background or culture or something, I want to learn their language in order to make a connection. Sometimes it's religious reasons. Maybe I want to study Arabic or study another language for religious reasons. As the world becomes more globalized, right, because of COVID-19 and other things, just other global factors, there's a lot more international teams, a lot more remote working, a lot more just interacting with the international community in general. So, and as we're seeing that, actually the demand for language learning, global language learning, all languages, is increasing 20% year over year. So it's growing from something like $60 billion to over $300 billion. So you're talking about a massive increase in the whole world's desire to learn other languages. And it's not just English, because English is all very valuable for marketplace value. If you speak English, you can double your salary like immediately. It's not just English, it's actually a lot of times English speakers needing to learn other languages, because if I'm next to a colleague or something like that, and she speaks 2 languages, 3 languages, and I speak 1 language, she has a competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
The same reason, going back to why do people learn Saudi Arabic in Saudi Arabia? Because if I'm in a meeting and I'm talking with someone, and I know even just basic customs or courtesies or respect or something like that, much less like being completely fluent. But that being said, if you only just want to come here for business reasons, guess what? Learning Arabic, if the person next to you who speaks Arabic versus you who doesn't speak any Arabic, they have a competitive advantage. This is a strategic competitive advantage for corporations, for anybody doing business in Saudi Arabia. So that's why we're seeing a lot more corporate clients, we can say, who are coming to Saudi Arabia and realizing relationships are absolutely everything in this country. You have to have relationships in this country to do anything, to do business, which is the same in the entire world. But I think here especially, it's just valued. Relationships are valued. It's important. There's a layer of trust that's established. And let's just be frank, when the whole world is coming to Saudi right now, the person who's going to stay here and have tea with you after, or coffee with you after, hang out with the person afterwards, they're going to show that they are more engaged in their relationship than they are. And I have a theory. I think that's why family offices here are so much more successful than they are in the US. In the US, they always warn you, never do business with family. Don't do business with family. Don't do it with your spouse or something like that. In Saudi, family offices are a huge part of the economy, part of the private sector and probably the public sector to a certain degree. And why have that existed? Why are there second, third, fourth generation family offices here? Because the relationship is so important. I think the relationships are also the reason why the economy is so strong, is so stable. The first question people have, like, why is Saudi Arabic important? Why learn the Saudi dialect of Arabic? I think there's a couple of reasons. People learn language because it's relational, it's a connection. It's also pragmatic. So I think the reason people learn languages is the engagement, interaction with it. And when somebody learns Arabic, let's say I want to learn Arabic, the first question they have is, what do I learn? Do I learn the modern standard Arabic? Do I learn Fusha? Do I learn Egyptian Arabic? Some people say Egyptian dialect because it's there was a lot of exportation of Egyptian media, and so this is the most widely understood or something. Some people say Gulf, some people say Morocco. Again, it all depends. But I think looking globally, if people learning Arabic for the first time, why is Saudi Arabic so strategic and so important for, yes, there's cultural reasons, but also just pragmatically, economically, right? The Vision 2030, in addition to Riyadh Expo, in addition to the World Cup, and I think an Olympic bid that I heard maybe might happen. So if you just want to work here and you're interested in increasing your value and making more money, if that's your goal, learn Saudi Arabic. If your goal is geopolitically, let's say you're interested in the geopolitical dynamics of Saudi Arabia being the key to regional stability, and we've seen that historically speaking in the past, certainly in the past 4 or 6 years, going back actually since the inception of the country, right? Saudi Arabia is the only Arabic-speaking G20 country. So if you want to learn Arabic, doesn't it make sense to speak the language that is hopefully even increasing as the economy grows as well? And then also religiously, there's 1.6 billion Muslims around the world. So the predictions are going from 15 million visits to, some people say 30, 45, I've heard as high as 60 million visits every year. Coming to Saudi, even just navigating and stuff like that, is going to make your experience a bit better. So those are...
Also, I've noticed Saudi Arabic is the closest to Fusha.
You would know. I'm not a linguist.
No, I'm just saying it's the closest to Fusha. Yeah. And I've noticed, if I'm speaking to my Egyptian colleague, my Lebanese colleague, my Moroccan colleague, even the ones who don't live in Saudi Arabia, if I have a team member who's remotely based, they'll understand me. I have a hard time understanding them. But it seems, it could be, of course, be confirmation bias. It seems that Saudi Arabic is more widely understood than maybe other versions of the Arabic language. And so that might also be another reason why someone would choose to learn Saudi Arabic in particular, is because it is not only the closest to Fusha, but it is the most, I think, widely understood accent, not the most widely spoken. Of course, that's Egyptian because they have a large population in Egypt. So one of the most, for me, it's the most widely understood dialect or accent is most definitely the Saudi version of Arabic. Coming up, we'll discuss the surprising ways in which learning a new language can have a positive impact on our minds and even our physiology.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
We were talking about the economic benefits, we talked about the social benefits, the cultural benefits. Are there any physiological benefits to not only learning Arabic, but learning languages in general?
Absolutely. If you learn Arabic, you become more attractive. You're more attractive. Their study shows you're more charismatic.
More believable.
You're self-full and your discipline increases. All your wildest dreams come true if you learn Arabic. You lose weight, you gain muscle. Your
skin gets tighter.
That's right. You're glowing, actually.
You grow your hair back.
Oh, yeah. Physiologically, I think for all languages, there's basically how your brain operates and how agile your brain is. It's called neuroplasticity. And again, I'm not a linguist, I'm not a neuroscientist, but
your dad's a doctor, so you have that.
So
That's
I
enough.
guess that counts. Yeah. That counts. My dad's a pilot. I can fly a plane. My dad's a doctor. I know about it. Yeah. So I'd say that it's basically how your brain like fires the neurons, how like functional your brain is, and how quickly learning a language helps with that. Because I think it's a couple of things. They've done some brain scans while people are learning language, and it's specifically within an immersive context. And they say it burns how hot your brain gets. Literally is like how much these neurons are firing. And it's say your brain's burns hotter on your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere. So the left hemisphere being I might get it mixed up. I think the left side of the brain being like the logical, the reasoning and stuff like that, right? It's the objective side of it, we can say. And then the right side of your brain being like the creative side, the abstract side, the one trying to understand things. So actually when you learn language in this immersive context, both of those sides are heated up, and that transfers like comically, it transfers into more calories being burnt. You're thinking harder, you're more present. Your brain is trying to grasp not just like the formula of it and like the structure of everything, which would be very mathematical, but it's also trying to grasp like the way that it's said and the tone and the sort of
You're literally like exercising your mind, exercising your brain.
Which is why they say learning a language is a hedge against, I don't know if it cures it, but yeah, it helps prevent Alzheimer's and dementia, and there's something else, but like memory loss and stuff like that, because it works your frontal lobe, the memory side of the brain, and also the short-term memory as far as day-to-day or even just within the first minute or something, recalling, but then also long-term as well, being able to do things, remember things over the course of a sustained time period as well. So yeah, I think it makes you smarter, we can say. In addition to, I think emotionally speaking, it gives you a much greater compassion and an empathy and a humility. Learning a different languages, because again, you have to enter another person's world. If you're just looking at flashcards and translating it, there's a lot of studies that show that actually lacks the cultural element to it.
Saudi Arabia is a very extroverted country. Saudis are very extroverted. And so most Saudis that I've met, at least, but maybe it's because also confirmation bias since I work in the media, but most of the Saudis that I've met in my life are all somewhat extroverted.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how the introverts feel here, because I'm naturally introverted. And I would say in the US, I don't know. I think the US values extroversion and big
If you're from Texas, it definitely
that's right. It's charismatic.
Stay tuned on Artifact as we ask Joel to share insights about the people he's worked with and why they're drawn to this fascinating part of the world.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
So for our last question though, Joel, which actually we were talking about the similarities between Texas and Saudi Arabia. That's another similarity between Texans and Saudis, is that they're both value extroversion in their personalities as a culture. So you've been working with a wide array of language and culture students and enthusiasts, really from all walks of life. What is the common interest or curiosity they have about learning language and culture in Saudi Arabia?
Good question. I
almost want to ask, what's on your FAQ list?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. In my experience, look, all 4 of my kids were born here. Like, my family's here. Like, I love it. It's the safest place I've ever been in the world. So I almost laugh. But someone actually told me recently, "Oh, Joel, you've been anesthetized. You're numb to this. You don't realize how magic this place is because you're in it all the time." And I'm like, I hope I haven't lost the magic. But I also tell them, you know what? Saudi is changing at such a pace. It's progressing and like positive impact. It's such a rapid pace that it feels like a new country every 6 months. So I even feel like I love the constant interaction with it. The good thing about that is, because people are coming in with either not a lot of information or like they've heard something or they think they know about it, the flip side of that is when they come here, it's so cool seeing their minds are totally blown, and they come here and to Riyadh and they get to Jeddah and they're like, this place has 5G. This has some of the world's best restaurants. I went to a restaurant and the stranger next to me paid for my food, right? So the reason I illustrate that is, I don't know, if you go into water and you expect it to be freezing, but it's actually a hot tub, you're like, oh, wow, this is incredible. Even more so than if you had expected that. So I think that's something I really enjoy, just hearing people's stories. And it's everybody, right? Anybody who's actually been here, and we've had friends and families and people we work with, clients as well. Everybody who's actually been here goes home and all of a sudden they become the Saudi evangelist, right? They tell everybody like, this place is incredible. You have to visit, you have to. So I think that's what's really cool.
What are they most curious about, Joel?
I think their curiosity ranges.
Besides like the nonsensical things they might have heard on pundits on Western TV. What is something that is not media related that you think they have so much curiosity about, or they find surprising?
I think it's how people live. I think it's lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think it's when we see people learning Saudi Arabic, usually it's 3 categories. They'll do it like for fun. Oh, it's just fun. Like they're enthusiasts. It's interesting. Some people it's functional. Oh, I want to get to a level of conversational proficiency. And then other people are fluency. Along with language comes the culture as well. A lot of it is just basic lifestyle, man.
We need cross-cultural enablers. And I guess that's one of the roles that you're playing, Joel.
Yeah, I think it's anybody who's here. It's so fascinating. And that's why I think a lot of other interests are in the historic significance of this place. Go to America and they're like, this is so old. It's 150 years old. And then someone goes to AlUla and sees Hagra, they see other things and be like, by the way.
They found an axe, the head of an axe, like the blade part of the axe. And we asked, how old is it? And they said 200,000 years. 200,000 years.
Incredible. Yeah.
What? You have people living here for 200,000 years?
Not just living here, but look at the advancement of the society.
Yes.
I think AlUla is disruptive. I think a lot of things here are disruptive because they're going to challenge people's narrative of, we thought, like we as in the collective community of information of humanity, we thought it was like this, but actually this tells a very different story. Absolutely. And what is it unlocked? It's almost just like a next chapter, and which is nice. We live in an information age where everything is so accessible. You can get everything. AI tells you, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes it feels like that element of wonder and discovery, almost like the movies about treasure hunting or something like that. It feels like AlUla is this like treasure map of you don't know what you're going to expect. You don't know what you're going to get, but it's going to be something extraordinary.
Yes. That was Joel Huffman, ladies and gentlemen, who is a language learning entrepreneur and the founder of his own language learning institution. We would like
Co-founder.
We would like to thank you so much for your time, Joel, and we love your enthusiasm. And I want to tell you that I really do admire you as a person. I admire all of the great things that you're trying to accomplish with your time in Saudi Arabia. And if I was not a host at AlUla FM, I would have loved to have done what you are doing. And that was another reason why, of course, I wanted to invite you to the podcast, is because not only do I personally admire you, but I feel like a lot of people will get inspired by your story and by your passion and by your enthusiasm, not only to learn, but to also see what Saudi Arabia has to offer in terms of tourism, culture, heritage, and traditions.
Well, you lived it, man. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, the first time I called you, I remember talking. It was a 10-minute phone call. It was planned. Oh, we'll just talk for 10 minutes or something. And an hour and a half later, we were still connecting. And it was a different time, right? It was a different time. Everybody has their own journey. But you're doing it now. Look at this. Look at the reach and the everything and the importance and the messages that are being sent out in this intangible cultural heritage that you're able to do with not just one aspect, but so many different aspects of the society, and able to give a voice to those incredible initiatives.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Joel, for your time. And we hope you join us on another episode of Artifact here at AlUla FM, the sound of Arabia.
Thanks for listening to Artifact.
Thanks.
Subscribe for more great content right here on AlUla FM podcast, the sound of Arabia.